Hey everybody, can you hear us? Please comment in the live chat if you can hear us. I'm just going to assume that you can, so I'm going to hand it over to Eliot, who's going to start the IELTS Q&A.
Hi, hello everybody. That was Lena, and she's going to be helping me this morning, taking your questions in and then passing them along to me. You may see here. But I'm excited to be with you this morning, and at least it's morning for me. I know there are people watching in many different places. So the point of today is to answer your questions, and I've already got some questions that have come in. We'll start with some of those, but please ask your questions, and I'm going to try to get to as many of them as I can this morning because there's some really great ones coming in, and I would like to try to get to a lot of them. We may not get to all of them depending on how many questions come in. So I'm just going to start. I've got my questions over here, so I'm going to be looking at them periodically. And again, if you have follow-up questions or questions on a different topic, please send them in for us. Okay, so we're going to start with an issue that has come up in several questions that you have submitted for this. And that's about speaking. So let's start off by talking about the speaking section of the IELTS. So a first question, one that also comes up very frequently here at Magoosh is, how can I improve my accent? So a person wrote in with a question about his or her accent and wants help thinking about how to improve accent. So this is, as I'm sure you know, a complicated topic because accent is something that for some people is extremely difficult to improve. Why is that? Well, if you think about, let's say, music, right? Think about somebody you know who can sing really, really well or beautifully, right? That person has probably practiced for a long time, and he or she may also just be naturally gifted. Gifted means just sort of, it's something that they were born with, right? A skill that they had. And some people can sing and play music really wonderfully, and other people need a lot more practice to gain even basic skills. Speaking and accent are exactly like that. And some people have what seems like a very natural ability to improve their speaking and sound like a native speaker, and other people take more time. So what can you do? All right, so there is a lot you can do. Of course, the absolute best thing to do for speaking is to speak as much as possible, to find opportunities to speak English. If you live in a place where there's a lot of English spoken around you, this may mean that you need to do things that go out of your way to speak English. Joining clubs, joining groups, finding opportunities. You have to take action and get out there, even when it feels uncomfortable, to use your English as much as possible. But many of you live in places that English is not spoken regularly. Okay, so obviously there are places online. There are many people who offer, a conversation partner you can study with. And I'm sure you're aware of many of those opportunities around. If those things don't exist for you, if that's not a possibility to sort of find a buddy online to chat with or to hire somebody to help you, then my recommendation is to do some very focused, regular practice. The best kind of practice for pronunciation, if you're doing self-study, is to listen to a lot of English native speakers. So listen to things like TED Talks or movies. You can listen to conversations like that and do a targeted exercise where you pause the video, you pause the audio frequently, and you try to repeat exactly what you heard the person say in exactly the same way he or she said it. You'll feel silly if you try when you try this at first because it sounds funny to repeat things exactly the way people say them. And I'm talking about stopping the recording every 5 seconds, every 10 seconds. You'll feel silly when you try to copy these people exactly. But that's good, because the silly feeling means you're copying the sounds of the new language in the way they're meant to be heard, not in the way that people might pronounce them who speak your native language, whatever that might be. That kind of practice for self-study can be really beneficial if you don't have people to speak English with regularly. So that's my advice for improving accent, at least. Another question about speaking. Okay, let me find that here. I have my list of questions. I need to find the right one. Somebody wrote with a question about getting ideas, finding ideas for speaking, okay, and for the writing section of the IELTS. So the problem the student has is that maybe they get nervous, or maybe there just isn't enough time, and when they're in the speaking exam and they're asked a question, it's difficult to come up with ideas. Also for the writing section, it's difficult to come up with ideas for essays. Okay, now one piece of advice, and this is kind of basic, but it's something that can really help many students, is that when you're responding in the speaking section and the writing section, it's often best to just think of the easiest and best thing you can write about with the English that you have, the first thing that comes to mind. Now this may not be the same thing you would say if you had, let's say, a day or two to think about what you had to say, right? If you have a difficult essay question on the IELTS, let's say a task 2 question that asks a very controversial opinion, probably you would have very complicated argument to write about that essay topic. Same thing for part 3 of the speaking test. There are many complicated questions, and if you had lots of time to think and really find the correct words in English, maybe you would answer with a really complex answer. But you don't have time for that on the IELTS exam. So my advice to students is to practice just going with what you can succeed with, okay? So if that means choosing a side for an argument that you have a lot to say about, even if it doesn't represent your full opinion on the topic, just go with that, okay? The IELTS graders are not grading your ideas. They're grading them, they want to make sure they make sense and they're reasonable, but they're not grading whether or not they agree with you, okay? So go with the first thing that comes to mind. The second piece of advice for generating ideas is simply that this is an area where practice really pays, especially in the writing section. Every time you should be writing, if you're preparing for the IELTS exam soon, let's say in a few weeks or maybe more, you should be writing at least 2 essays every week, maybe more, practice essays, and really working on generating ideas quickly, timing yourself, recreating the exam conditions, because you don't have a long time to think and you need to recreate that situation when you practice. And so regular practice with just thinking quickly. We have an expression, thinking on your toes is an important thing to do for the IELTS, and this needs to be part of your practice. So time yourself when you're doing exercises for the IELTS. Okay, let's move on to a different topic. Okay. All right. Okay, a question came in from a viewer this morning. It says, please will you help us in writing? Can you do a template to make it easier? Well, you're in luck. We have some templates for you that you can find on the Magoosh IELTS blog. If you go to if you go to the Magoosh IELTS blog and search for the complete guide to task 2. So if you type that in and search for Magoosh's complete guide to task 2 IELTS writing, you're going to find a guide there that includes a general template for task 2 essays. And then if you scroll all the way down to the bottom of that blog post, you're going to see a guide to organization for all of the for the 5 main types of task 2 essays. Okay, we have exactly the same kind of information available to you for task 1 as well. If you go to the blog, you can find a complete guide to task 1 with a template to help you follow. Those templates are wonderful. They should be there. You should use them as you're practicing your essays, especially if you don't have somebody who is giving you feedback on your writing. If you're just doing self-study, following these templates is an important thing to try in order to make sure that your organizational patterns are clear, and that you're not missing out on points because your organization doesn't work well. So my advice is to check out those blog posts. For the task 1 complete guides we have on the blog, though we have one for general training. We have one on the blog for the academic IELTS. If you want a general training template, you're going to have to go to the Magoosh IELTS ebook that we published in November. It's a long book. It's like 165 pages. But there is, at the beginning, you can find a table of contents and just go to the chapter on general training writing. And you can see in that chapter some templates for the letters you need to write for general training exam. Okay, so those are my advice on the place to start looking for these templates. Go there and see if they help, and you can always comment on the blog as well. We respond to all of your comments with questions that you have on our blog material. So that's my advice for helping with those templates. Okay, let's see. Some good questions rolling in. All right. So we have a question on skimming and scanning. Okay, a reading question. So let's think about that. Skimming and scanning. So this is a general question. How to find skimming and scanning words? That's the question. All right. So it's a general question. It's an important one though. If you've done any studying of the IELTS so far, especially IELTS reading, you probably have found that that one of the basic skills you need to master for the IELTS reading section is skimming and scanning for answers. The reason it's so important is that on the IELTS reading section, especially the academic reading section, 60 minutes is not usually enough time for people to read all of the essays and to find the answers in the text. Okay, if you read all of the essays very carefully, like you would an essay for school that your professor assigned you, you probably would run out of time. Okay, so there's some very fast readers out there, but most of my students need a different way. So the strategy that we teach here at Magoosh, and that you've probably found other places, is instead of reading each passage carefully, to use skimming and scanning to your benefit. Okay, so what are those things? Well, skimming is a strategy that you use right at the beginning before you've even really looked at an essay closely. Skimming is a strategy you use to get the basic idea of an essay and what it's about. And not only to get the main idea, but to give yourself a sense of how the essay is organized and where you might be able to find certain information in the essay. So, for example, what strategy that I typically give to students is when you come to a new IELTS reading passage, plan to take 2 to 3 minutes skimming, okay? That's actually a fairly long time. These essays are not extremely long essays, okay? So 2 to 3 minutes is how long it should take you to skim one of the IELTS reading essays before you start trying to answer questions. In that 2 to 3 minutes, what you're trying to do, your whole goal should be to try to figure out what is the basic idea of this essay and what is the main idea of each paragraph in the essay. So that means as you're skimming, what you're trying to do is to always sort of read the first sentence or two of each paragraph. You should be looking and not reading carefully, but kind of using your eyes, going slowly down the paragraph with your eyes and trying to find key words that are there to give you some sense of what's in that paragraph. For example, if you're reading an essay on some historical topic, by skimming, by looking, not reading carefully, but by skimming and trying to find key words and sort of going from top to bottom in the paragraph with your eyes and trying to notice what's there, you'll probably notice names of people or places or dates, right? You might notice that the essay is organized chronologically in order of time sequence, right? This is very important information that you can use when you're answering IELTS reading questions, because when you come to a new question, you might remember exactly where to look in the reading passage to find the answer, and that will save you precious time, okay? So my advice is to skim a passage, go through from top to bottom, plan to take 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes, and write little notes in the side next to each paragraph, a word or two. You don't have time to write long notes, just trying to identify what each paragraph is about. If you can do that, then when you go back and answer questions, you'll have some notes to remind yourself where to look for certain information in the passage. Scanning then is what you do when you're trying to answer questions. So you come to, let's say, question 5, and it asks you a question about a certain person. Let's say Bill Smith is a name in the question, and oh, I need to go back to the passage and look for an answer about Bill Smith. Okay, what you do is you're going back to the passage and scanning for the name Bill Smith, and then you're trying to find the info. You're going to read the sentences surrounding any place where you see Bill Smith's name to try to look for the specific answer to the question. Okay, that's what scanning is, and it's a key skill. If you're not going to go through and read each of the answers, or excuse me, if you're not going to go through and read each essay very, very slowly and carefully, which I advise you not to do, right? Because you don't have time, you'll need to go back and have strategies for scanning. So how can you scan for answers well? Well, as you know, most IELTS reading questions are organized into groups, right? So you might have a group of matching questions or true, false, not given questions, right? My advice is not to go through one by one, but to start with the question in that set that will be easiest for you to find in the passage. I find that numbers are easy to scan for, right? Numbers stand out in the essay. So if you have a date like 1943 or something like that, and you need to look for an answer related to that date, it's going to be very quick and easy to find that information in the reading passage. Names or places are also easy because they have capital letters, right? Things that are visually easy to see are the place I would advise. So let's say a question set has numbers, questions 6 through 10, And number 8 looks easiest to find in the passage because maybe you remember where it is from the scanning you did at the beginning, or maybe it has some feature that makes it easy to find in the passage. Start with that one. Read the surrounding sentences around that information in the passage to look for the answer. And you would be surprised if you start with the easiest ones to find, you often find answers to other questions in that set as you're doing your searching, right? Sometimes there's a name of a person that is mentioned several times, and you might find an answer to a different question when you are scanning for that one. So if you go with the stuff that's easiest to find first and then answer the other questions, you can often save time. That's my advice for skimming and scanning and how to do it quickly. Again, as all these things that we're talking about this morning, it's something you need to practice. Time yourself. When you're doing practice questions for IELTS reading, you need to set a 20-minute timer for each passage and stick to that timer. Don't give yourself more time because that's not realistic. You need to practice these skimming and scanning skills. Okay. Wow, so many good questions. Somebody followed up with an earlier question. Can you give us an academic writing template? Yes, maybe you missed. So I mentioned earlier, we do have academic writing templates for task 2 and task 1. Just go to the Magoosh IELTS blog, or you in Google or whatever you're using, you can search Magoosh IELTS task 1 complete guide or Magoosh IELTS task 2 complete guide, and you can find a good template in those blog posts that we have for both of those academic tasks. Okay, so that's where to find those that information. Let's see. Okay. We have some questions about true, false, not given questions for the reading section. We've got a few questions coming in about that. Yes, true, false, not given, and the related type, yes, no, not given. Those are, I think, some of the hardest questions to answer in the reading section. So it's understandable you might have some problems with those. So true, false, not given. So as you know, not given is an answer choice that causes some problems for many students. So the true and the false tend to be pretty easy. What you're looking for with true and false is, for a true answer, does the passage say something that confirms the statement in the question? So you need to find something in the passage that is saying exactly the same thing as what you find in the question. It confirms the answer. A false answer goes against something that is said. So it contradicts, okay? So the opposite thing was mentioned in the passage, okay? So true and false on the IELTS mean that something was discussed about the statement in the question, and what you need to find out is whether the reading passage said something that supports the statement or something that did not support the statement. Not given throws something tricky into the mixture. So if on most exams you've probably taken that have true and false only, if an answer is not mentioned or not discussed, often the answer is false, right? But on the IELTS, there's a possibility that the reading passage says absolutely nothing about the topic or the statement in the question. And in that case, you have to put not given, excuse me. So when there's no discussion of it at all, this tends to be really hard because you could spend a lot of time searching for something that is in fact not there in the passage. All right, so you don't want to do that. The worst case scenario is that you waste so much time on these true, false, not given questions, searching for things that are not there, that you miss easier questions later, right? So it's just strategically, do not spend more time on these questions. If you find that you've been searching and searching and searching for something that you just can't find the answer, the best strategy is to just mark not given and to move to the next question, okay? So don't waste extra time on these questions. Now, you still do want to go scan for these answers. Fortunately, you know, most of the time you will be able to find a place in the passage where you would expect to find the answer, right? So the question isn't going to be just something that the IELTS writers made up and it's completely not related to the topic. It's going to be related to something specific in the passage, even if it's a not given answer. And they want to test you to see if you are able to identify whether the passage confirms, goes against, or simply does not discuss the topic that's in the question. So my advice to students is if you can't find the answer quickly, but you can find the section of the article where you would expect to find the answer because you've done some skimming and scanning. If you don't notice that an answer is confirmed or contradicted directly, then you can quickly mark not given, because almost all of the time that the IELTS questions are going to refer to a very specific section of that article. All right, now this isn't always true. Sometimes there are questions that you might expect to find in different parts of the essay. And in those cases, if you know where to look, go look quickly, but don't waste so much time. If you can't find something that directly confirms or contradicts the true-false quickly, then definitely move on to the next question so you don't miss easy answers later, okay? Yes, no, not given questions are very similar. Yes, no, not given questions are a little less common. They're used with, especially in essays where they're talking about theories or perspectives that people have. So it's usually an academic kind of article where you're encountering different theories that people have on some specific topic, okay? Yes, no, not given is almost exactly the same as true, false, not given. You're being asked to determine whether or not usually somebody, the statement in the question would agree with a particular person's point of view, okay? The same strategies apply. Scan for the place in the article where a particular person's theories are mentioned. Try to confirm whether or not that person would agree, disagree, or whether the information is simply not given, okay? Excuse me. With this question type, go to the official sources, right? If you go to the IELTS practice questions that you can find online, the IELTS website does offer some sample questions. Go there, make sure you have some official materials, right? The Cambridge Guide to IELTS is one that I recommend. There are numerous practice tests in there with authentic materials. Practice the true, false, not given questions and always go back and read the explanations there to see how the answers are organized and what answers they provide. Because just getting a sense of how they structure these questions is often a good first step to sort of understanding how to approach them. At Magoosh, we also have practice questions. We have numerous sets of true, false, not given questions to practice for students who sign up for our program. So find good, high-quality questions to practice this on. And if you do enough of them, you'll get a feel for what IELTS is looking for on those. Okay, many more questions coming in. Let's see. So an interesting question here. How should I greet the instructor on the IELTS speaking exam? Well, yeah, as you might be aware, first of all, go online and on YouTube. You can find many examples of official, very official IELTS sample speaking tests. Right, you can watch people going through the exam on the Magoosh IELTS blog. We also, excuse me, the YouTube channel we have for Magoosh IELTS. We also have a sample interview there. How should you greet the instructor in the IELTS speaking exam? Well, in general, you want to follow their lead. Okay, so let them be in control. They will ask you questions like, may I please have your name? They want to see your identification, right? So you can just kind of follow their lead in that case. But I wouldn't, this is not something you should feel stressed about. Don't say too much. Just when you walk into the room, the instructor will probably greet you first. But you can keep it very simple. Just say, hello, nice to meet you. You can, if they ask you for your name immediately, you can give it to them. But my general advice is to let the instructor, let the person interviewing you be in control and ask you the questions, and just follow the lead from there. Okay, because that's the appropriate way to approach the speaking test, is to let your interviewer be in control and listen carefully to every question. Okay, so it starts from the very beginning, even when you're just introducing yourself. Okay, so don't say too much. Just say hello and be very polite. Smile, look confident. Okay, body language can actually have some impact, and not just on how the interviewer views you, but also on yourself. If you're feeling confident, looking confident, you're gonna just go in and do your best. Okay, so be aware of yourself and how you feel, and try to calm down. Remember that, you know, this is sort of not directly related to your question, but just building off of it a little bit. Just keep in mind that the first section of the speaking test is supposed to be kind of like a warm-up for you. Okay, they are of course examining your language in that first section, but as I'm sure you're aware, the questions are easier, and you're not expected to answer. You're not expected to give long answers for the part 1 questions that you have. So try to use that time from the very beginning to relax. Okay, the speaking test is something that can be can make many people very, very nervous. And it is an intense situation, right? You only have 15 minutes maximum in order to show your language skills and to answer all of these questions one after the other. The best thing to try to keep in mind from the very beginning is that your goal should be to calm down, to breathe slowly, okay, and just be as relaxed as you can, so that you don't get in the way of yourself when you're speaking. Okay, same thing when you walk into the room. Try to be as relaxed as possible. Smile, greet the interviewer nicely, and go from there. Okay, some more questions. All right. Okay. Next question I see here. Please, will you help us suggest a plan to prepare for IELTS? My level is elementary. Okay, so this person is coming to the exam with, I interpret this as sort of a lower level of English. Okay, so so the question is how to prepare for the IELTS if you're not, if your English level is not extremely advanced. Okay, that's a good question, because as you know, as you may know, there are 2 parts of studying for any of these exams. I would guess many of you out there are are possibly having to study for exams like the TOEFL or the GRE for graduate school, or maybe the GMAT if you're going to business school, something like that. If you're planning to go on and study, especially in the US or one of these English-speaking countries, you're probably going to have to take several exams. So exam preparation and English study are two separate things, right? So here at Magoosh, we offer a program that's really focused on helping students prepare for the test, learning about how the test is organized and some strategies for succeeding on each section, right? And you can not only Magoosh, of course, there are many resources out there that you can use to simply learn about the test, get used to it, familiar with it, and try to do your best on those sections. That's completely separate, actually, from just simply improving your English skills, okay? For many of you out there, that's going to be an important thing you need to focus on, especially if your language skills are not extremely high, right? You can learn all of the exam strategies that are available to you in the world, but if your English level is not high enough, then you're not going to score well on the exam, even if you know all the strategies. Okay, so what should you do? My advice, if you have to take the exam soon, okay, if it's coming up for you and you have a school in mind you want to go to, and you've got plans you'd like to go after, my advice is to, first of all, find out the scores you need to achieve. Okay, so go to the specific places you want to apply to, the schools you're looking at, or if you're taking IELTS for immigration or some other purpose, figure out the scores you need, okay? Then, early on in your process, try to take a full-length exam and try to get feedback from somebody, okay? Find an instructor, find somebody who speaks English as a native language, okay, as their first language, right? To give you feedback on your writing and your speaking skills. Try to discover which area are you weakest, okay? Maybe you have a lot of work to do on grammar. Maybe your speaking skills are wonderful, but you have difficulty writing. Try to do targeted training when you're just studying English. If you're otherwise pretty fluent with English, you can speak well, but you make a lot of grammar mistakes, you'll probably need to spend time studying those things. Keep in mind, for most people, learning another language, any language, not just English, but to get to a level where you can use that language in college or graduate school, it is a big commitment. It can take years, okay? So just simply trying to pass the exam by studying strategies will not help. It may take some commitment and some effort and time to find a teacher, to find resources that will help you with the specific thing. But anyway, if the IELTS is part of your plan for the future, maybe 6 months, a year from now, start early by taking a practice test, learning what's there, figuring out how you would score, and trying to target those specific skills that are weakest for you with regular focused study. You may need to sign up for a class. You may need to find a tutor. If it's grammar and you like to do self-study, maybe you need to get an excellent grammar book to study grammar at home and really practice. Okay, so everybody's needs will be different there. But my advice is to give yourself time, be patient, and target those skills. Okay, let's see. A related question, I guess, how many months can I prepare for IELTS by myself without an instructor? Well, okay, I won't spend a long time on this question because it's similar to the last one. Everybody's situation is different. I think, if you feel that your English level is at the place that you want it to be, okay, so you feel that generally speaking, your writing skills are pretty strong, your speaking skills are strong, you don't make a lot of grammar mistakes. I think if you take a month to study, maybe more, maybe a little more, 2 months, 3 months for some people, but a couple of months studying, just simply taking practice tests, working on practice questions, learning about strategies. For most people, that is a really good amount of time in order to learn what you need to know to succeed on the test. Now, I've seen some people who've taken a short time, a couple weeks, a week or two, and they've really, mostly these people have not had other things going on, right? So during vacation time, they don't have to work. They've got 2 weeks to really study as much as possible and study, authentic materials. They're taking practice exams and really intensively studying for a few hours a day. That's been enough for some people. For most people, though, if you've got classes going on, or you work, or you have a family, or whatever your situation is, you want to give yourself more time. So a month or 2 or 3 is generally good. A month and a half or 2 is generally good for most people. If you don't have much time to study, definitely plan on taking 3 months. And if you really don't have much time to study, I know some people who prepare for 6 months, okay? If you've got language issues you need to work on, if your grammar is weak, if you need to study vocabulary, and because you don't have a lot of vocabulary, or you're not very fluent because you haven't practiced speaking English in a long time. Maybe you studied English a few years ago, you haven't used it for a while. Then the best scenario is to take longer. Okay, so 3 to 6 months, if you've got things you really need to work on with your English, is a good amount of time to make some changes. Okay, it's hard to really improve your English skills in a month or less. You can learn vocabulary and maybe recover some of the grammar that you once knew and forgot. Okay, but it's hard to learn something new in that amount of time. So anyway, I would suggest that if you have to work on your English skills, plan to take 3 to 6 months. Okay. Oh, an interesting question just came in. How important is vocabulary and choice of words in writing and speaking? Is elementary vocabulary with good grammar enough? Okay, that's actually an interesting question. It's a complicated question, actually, because so I imagine the question is coming from this place. Is it better to use basic words that you know in speaking and writing and not make mistakes than to try to use more advanced words and possibly and advanced grammar structures and make mistakes? That is a very complicated question to answer. For vocabulary, the answer is yes. You don't want to use words that you're not confident about and that you don't know whether you're using them correctly. To make a mistake with a word choice shows the person listening that you didn't really understand the word, even if it sounds like a very advanced word and it is an advanced word, but you used it incorrectly. That actually will take away from your score. In that sense, it is better to use more basic words and to avoid mistakes, okay? However, if you go through your whole essay and your whole interview and you only use very elementary words, that will also bring you down a little bit, okay? So my advice is to go, especially in speaking and writing, go with what you know, okay? So don't use words that you're not sure about. Now, there's another part of this question, though, which is, well, can you go out and learn more? Can you get more? Can you acquire more vocabulary and expand your vocabulary? And the answer is yes. Even if you have a short time, a couple of weeks, you should be studying grammar every single day, and vocabulary every single day in order to acquire more words. You should, with writing, you should be doing things like practicing paraphrasing, okay? So we have some YouTube videos related to paraphrasing. You should be taking the essay questions and trying to put them in your own words really trying to push your vocabulary in order to see whether you can rephrase the questions in a way that will, where you're not sort of copying the same language or the same words from the prompts. This should be a goal of yours as you're studying for the IELTS, to learn a lot of words a day. There's lots of research into how many words can a person possibly learn in one day. Well, 15 is usually the maximum, 15 to 20, the maximum you can learn in one day. But think how many words that is. That if you have a month to study and you could learn 15 new words every day, you would be much further along, especially if you're studying targeted words. At Magoosh, we have flashcards. We have vocabulary flashcards you can download targeted for the IELTS exam in particular. Use those, okay? If you go and if you search for Magoosh IELTS flashcards, okay, you're going to come up and be able to download a free resource there to help you study for vocabulary. You should be trying to expand, okay? So anyway, that was a lot to say there, but the basic answer is, okay, if you don't know the meaning of a word, or you're not confident about a grammar structure, it's best to avoid it. You definitely it will be noticeable if you make mistakes. But your goal from now until exam day should be to try to expand your vocabulary and your sense of grammar, so that you can have a larger range available to you when you're speaking and writing. Okay. Okay. Let's see. All right. What type of grammar do we need for IELTS? Well, what type of grammar? That's the answer is you need the answer is there's no specific grammar topic I would recommend generally. Okay. Every student, every IELTS student comes to the exam with different grammar issues, okay? Part of it is related to your native language, okay? So some grammar issues are more common for speakers of a certain language over others, okay? So it's hard for me to advise you generally on the type of grammar you need for the IELTS exam. As you're probably aware, IELTS does not specifically test grammar, right? They don't have grammar questions. However, they're very clever, and grammar is something they are testing with their reading questions and listening questions. It's just not something that they're not asking you direct grammar questions like you might get in a grammar class or a grammar textbook. Okay, so there's no one specific thing. Some students spend a lot of time studying verb tenses and things like that. Yes, verb tenses are important, but it's not the only thing. My advice to you is that I would begin with your writing. Okay, writing is a wonderful place to analyze your grammar and what may need to be fixed with some of the grammar mistakes that you're making. It's also something that is easy to get feedback about because you can share your writing. You've got it on a page in front of you. You can get somebody to look at it. Find anybody, even if they are not an English teacher, okay, to take just a quick look at 1 or 2 or 3 of your writing samples. So maybe do some task 2 essays, practice a few, and then find somebody out there maybe that can take a quick look and just kind of mark some of the mistakes you're making. That's a good place to start, to try to figure out what are the issues I'm facing specifically, okay? And then if you're self-studying, if you can't sign up for a grammar class or an English class somewhere, or you don't want to work with a tutor and you want to do self-study, just knowing what problems you face can be a really important thing. And then I advise going to a really good grammar book for self-study. if you go on the Magoosh IELTS blog, I have a list. There's a blog post called let's see, I think it's the best IELTS resources of 2017. Okay, so 2017 IELTS resources. In that blog post, I recommend a grammar book that's really great for self-study. It's one that's very popular in English classes in the US and I think around the world. It's called the Azar, it's the Azar Guides to Grammar, okay? The name of the book is Azar. It's good for self-study because there are many, many practice exercises, and I believe the grammar explanations are very clear and very simple. And again, I like how much practice they give you and how much you can sort of use it for self-study in that way. So that would be a book I recommend ordering if you need to work on grammar and you need to do it with self-study. Okay, I think that's the best resource. So go to that blog post that we have, the best IELTS resources of 2017 on the Magoosh IELTS blog, and you'll see a recommendation for grammar study there. And I think that's a good place to start. Okay. All right, back to writing. What kind of topics will be asked on the essays that you have to write? Okay, so for the academic exam, you have 2 tasks, and the first task is so task 1 is 20 minutes. You have 20 minutes to write a very short, it's not really an essay, it's more of a report, okay? For the topics for task 1, they give you some type of visual, right? It can be a map, it can be a graph or chart. It can be a few charts or graphs. They often use 2, sometimes 3 charts next to each other. And basically you need to report about the information that's there. So this is truly a report. You are not supposed to give your opinion or perspective on this at all. You're simply supposed to give the facts. What's there, and can you identify all the key information that's there for you? Okay, so get familiar with those. It's a very unique kind of essay. Other exams you may be writing for, if you have studied the TOEFL at all, or if you're planning to take the GRE or other exams, they don't have anything similar to this task 1 essay type. So it's something to become familiar with, okay? On our YouTube channel here at Magoosh, we have a little guide for you that you can use to sort of a template to help you organize your task 1 essays, to understand what's there. And also on the Magoosh blog, we have a task 1 a guide. So I would go there for that. For task 2, now these are more standard types of essays. So the topics for task 2 essays, they're all going to ask you to provide your perspective on something, okay? So you'll have to, it's not always about your opinion. You don't have to take a side on something. In fact, some questions simply ask you to report information about 2 sides of an issue, okay? But it will always involve your perspective in some kind. Task 2 essay questions are sometimes debatable, okay? Often they are debatable. So a topic, they like to talk about topics you're probably familiar with and there may not be a clear answer about, okay? So education or the environment or some type of, not too heavy, a lighter kind of social issue is usually something that they will ask you about. And the question will not have a correct answer. There won't be one side that's better than the other. You could equally argue both sides and be reasonable on either side. So questions like, should kids be required to wear uniforms in school? Okay, there are many different sides to this question. You can answer either side and have a reasonable answer for that topic. That would be a style a topic of the question that they may ask you. Now, as you're probably aware, IELTS asks its questions in very specific ways. So they ask you things like, to what extent do you agree or disagree with this topic, whatever they've asked you about, okay? In that case, you're going to have to provide an argument about some issue that they present to you. Other style of questions are, discuss both sides of an issue. In that case, you're supposed to present side A to an issue and then spend equal time presenting side B to an issue. Sometimes they don't even want you to take a side. They just simply want you to report. Let's say you're supposed to say what the good things about side A are and what the good things are about side B. Okay, there are different things they may ask you to do in that case. Another essay question type is what I call thematic questions. They simply ask you two or three questions in a row based on some theme that they have there. Okay, so these different styles of questions are important to be aware of. And I mentioned it earlier at the beginning of our live stream here, but if you go on the Magoosh IELTS blog, you will go to the complete guide to task 2 on the blog, and you'll see these different styles of essays there and examples of the kinds of questions they might ask you. If one thing that does come up every now and then with students is doing a lot of studying to try to predict what type of question or exactly what topic of question you might be asked on the IELTS exam. In other words, studying specific essays on family, questions related to family or things like that. If it's a general topic and you're studying vocabulary and studying essays, that to give you ideas about what you might be able to write, great. It is perfectly good thing to study lots of different types of IELTS essays and sort of help you generate ideas. Please do not, however, plan on taking the IELTS and trying to use large chunks of essays that you've read before, trying to apply them to the topic that you will be asked about on the essay. That does not work. In fact, they will notice it quickly and probably mark your score down because they'll notice that the chunks of essays that you've memorized or that you've studied deeply and are trying to apply to whatever question you're studying simply don't match exactly the question that they've asked you. And you're going to lose points. You're going to lose points because you're not answering the question directly enough. Don't plan on studying and memorizing essays and applying what you've learned to IELTS questions because it just won't work. Okay, you're not going to answer the question directly enough. Okay, each question is different. They're very good about bringing up things that maybe you haven't encountered before that you can't find answers for online. Anyway, it's better to study the template and the strategies for organizing an essay than to study very specific language related to any particular topic that you might find. Okay, let's see here. What do we have next? Right, looks like we have time for about one more question here. Let's finish it with a good one. Let's see. All right. Okay. Well, there are several. Let's do this. There have been several questions on how to achieve a specific band score. Okay, so some people have written in and said, "Hey, I've already taken the exam and I scored a 7. How can I get to a 7.5 in this specific section, whatever it is that they're struggling with? Or how can I get to an 8? Okay, so that's a great question. It's a complicated question to answer, like many others, because it depends on your what issues you are having specifically that are bringing your score down. Is it grammar? Let's say we're thinking about writing or speaking. Is it grammar mistakes that are causing you to have issues? Is it the organization of your essays? Or maybe you're struggling to come up with ideas, and there are many different issues. Okay, so fortunately, IELTS does actually provide a nice guide to you in order to give you a sense of what your scores should be for speaking and for writing, if those are the issues you're struggling with. I see from the questions that's true for many of you, okay? My advice is to go to the official IELTS website, okay? You can just Google. If you Google or search for IELTS Task 2 Writing Band Descriptors, okay? That would be a good search for Task 2. You can search for the same thing, IELTS Task 1 Writing Band Descriptors. You're going to get a nice chart that gives you very detailed information about what IELTS is looking for as they grade your exam, your writing, and what makes each level, what kind of things will be typical for each level of band score for, let's say in this case, writing. Okay, so if you look at that chart, if you've gone there and you found that PDF, for example, they say for grammar that a person at level 8 uses a wide range of structures. The majority of sentences are error-free, and they make only very occasional errors or use inappropriate structures, things like the inappropriate language, inappropriate vocabulary. They make mistakes, or with grammar, they're using structures that don't work in that case. All right, so how to use this? Okay, so if you're self-studying, you need to probably get some help from someone, at least somebody whose English is maybe a little more advanced than yours, or a native speaker, to take a look at your writing, to find errors, even if it's not a teacher and that person can't explain to you what the errors are. If you want to know that your writing is at a level 8 for grammar, you need to have a sense that almost all of your sentences are completely error-free. Okay, until you achieve that level, you're probably not going to score an 8 on your grammar score, because that's something that they're looking for. So doing writing, giving these grading criteria, they're called, this sort of grading scheme that they have, to the person you're working with. If you have a teacher, share this with them. Let them know this is what I'm trying to achieve. Can you help me? Give me feedback on whether I'm achieving these specific goals with my writing. They have the same document for speaking as well. Okay, if you do the same kind of search, if you do IELTS speaking band descriptors, you'll get a chart that gives you the same information. If you're working with somebody, use those. Okay, that is going to be the most targeted way to try to achieve a specific score. Okay, so use those. Reading and listening are much more straightforward, right? You have to get a certain number of questions correctly. That means, as you know, for speaking, the questions get easier as you go from the beginning of the test to the end. So that means that if you're going to get a really high score, you're going to bump your score up to the next level. You need to ensure that you're getting the easiest questions at the beginning of the test correct, okay? So parts 1 through part 2, you're eliminating easy errors, okay? Errors on questions that should be easy for you to answer. And then you're practicing the more complicated question types at the end. That's much more straightforward though. Lots and lots of practice with reading and listening will help you get to those places. I do see though that some students can bump their score up by really becoming familiar, especially in listening, with parts 1 and 2, the easier section, and practicing a lot of those so that they avoid simple mistakes and don't miss out on easy points towards the beginning. Okay, remember, on IELTS reading and listening, each question is worth the same number of points. Okay, so you don't want to lose the easy points at the beginning because you were careless. Okay. I think we've run out of time here for today. So thank you all for your wonderful questions. I keep coming back to the IELTS YouTube channel here, and we've got a lot of videos there where we would invite you to write in and ask questions about the topics that are there. We will respond to you. If you've got questions that were not answered today, that could be a place you might want to ask some follow-up questions for us. We'll be happy to respond to you there, okay? Hope you guys all have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time.